The Great Hall of the Kethrani Empire was the largest room Princess Valera had ever known. Golden pillars rose toward a ceiling painted with the faces of ancient emperors. Thousands of nobles sat in curved rows, their violet skin glowing softly under the crystal lights. They wore robes of silver and black, the colors of power. They looked down at her like she was something dirty on their floor. Valera stood alone in the center of the hall. She wore the white dress of an unbonded princess, simple and plain compared to the rich clothing around her. Her hands were steady, but her heart beat so fast she thought everyone could hear it. Today was the day that would decide her future. Today, the noble houses would answer her bonding petition. The Kethrani had strict laws about royal succession. A princess could not inherit the throne without a consort from a recognized noble house. It was an old law, made in ancient times to keep power within certain families. Valera's father, Emperor Torvan, had tried to change it before he died. He had failed. Now Valera stood before the same nobles who had hated her father's choice of wife. Her mother had been a commoner, a teacher from a small colony world. She had no noble blood, no family name that mattered. The great houses had never forgiven the emperor for loving her, and they had never accepted the daughter that love produced. High Counselor Brennan rose from his seat at the front of the hall. He was an old Kethrani with deep lines on his face and cold eyes that showed no kindness. He held a golden scroll in his hands. "We have received the bonding petition of Princess Valera, daughter of Emperor Torvan," he said. His voice echoed through the silent hall. "The noble houses have considered her request. We shall now hear their answers." Valera lifted her chin and tried to look strong. She knew what was coming. She had known for weeks. But she had hoped, foolishly, that at least one house might see past her blood. Lord Mevin of House Sorath stood first. He was tall and proud, with silver hair that fell past his shoulders. His house was one of the oldest and most powerful in the empire. "House Sorath refuses the petition," he said. He did not look at Valera as he spoke. "The bloodlines are incompatible. A union would weaken our house beyond repair." Valera felt the words like a slap, but she did not let her face change. She had practiced this. She had stood before her mirror and made herself into stone. Lord Cashin of House Velther stood next. "House Velther refuses. The princess carries common blood. This cannot be overlooked." Lady Sareth of House Morwen followed. "House Morwen refuses. We have no interest in joining our name to one so tainted." One by one, they rose. 7 great houses, 7 refusals. Each one gave a different reason, but the meaning was the same. She was not good enough. She would never be good enough. Her mother's blood was a poison that no title could cure. When the last house finished speaking, the hall fell silent. Valera stood in that silence, feeling smaller than she had ever felt in her life. She was a princess of the Kethrani Empire, daughter of a beloved emperor. And she was worth nothing to these people. From the shadows at the side of the hall, she saw her uncle watching. Prince Counselor Draven had the same violet skin as all Kethrani, but his eyes were darker, hungrier. He was her father's younger brother, and he had wanted the throne since before Valera was born. With no consort, she could not inherit. The path to power would be his. He smiled at her. It was not a kind smile. Valera turned and walked out of the great hall. She did not run, though she wanted to. She kept her steps slow and her back straight. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. The corridors of the palace were long and empty. Valera walked through them like a ghost, past paintings of ancestors who would have been ashamed of her, past windows that looked out on a city full of people who did not want her to rule them. She walked until she reached the one place in the palace that felt like hers. The observatory was at the top of the highest tower. It was a small room filled with star charts and old books. A great telescope pointed toward the sky, and through the glass ceiling, Valera could see the endless darkness of space dotted with distant suns. This was where she came when the world became too heavy. This was where she felt closest to her father. She sat on the cold floor and finally let herself cry. That was how Aaron found her. The old scholar had served her father for 40 years. His violet skin had faded to pale lavender with age, and he walked with a cane that clicked against the stone floor. But his eyes were still sharp, still full of wisdom and warmth. "I heard what happened," he said softly. He lowered himself to sit beside her, his old joints protesting. "I'm sorry, child." Valera wiped her eyes. "They hate me, Oren. They have always hated me." "They hate what you represent," Oren said. "Your father loved a common woman. He showed them that their precious bloodlines meant less than they believed. They cannot forgive that. It does not matter why they hate me. The result is the same. Without a consort, I cannot inherit. My uncle will take the throne, and everything my father worked for will be destroyed." Aaron was quiet for a long moment. He looked up at the stars through the glass ceiling, his old face thoughtful. "There may be another way," he said finally. Valera looked at him. "What do you mean?" "There is an old law. Very old. It has not been used in centuries, but it was never removed from the books." Aaron pulled a small data tablet from his robe and handed it to her. "The Pact of Open Bonds. It was created in the early days of the Galactic Compact, when the Kethrani first made contact with other species. It allows a royal to seek a consort from any species within the compact." Valera read the words on the screen. Her heart began to beat faster. "Any species?" "Any species that has signed the compact agreements." The law was meant to build alliances with other races. It was used a few times in ancient days, then forgotten. Oren paused. "The noble houses cannot refuse a consort chosen under this law. It is older than their houses, older than their traditions. But which species would accept?" Valera asked. "The elder races look down on us almost as much as our nobles look down on my mother's blood. The Vorin think we are too emotional. The Scylothi think we are too warlike. None of them would agree to a union with a half-blood princess." Oren smiled, just a little. "There is one race that might. They are new to the compact. They have no old prejudices, no ancient hatreds. They are considered primitive by most, but they have shown themselves to be surprising." Valera felt hope stir in her chest, fragile and painful. "Who?" "The humans," Aaron said. "They have an embassy here, on the capital world. They are young and eager to prove themselves. And they do not know enough about our politics to refuse you for the right reasons." Valera looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there was a small blue world called Earth. She had read about humans in her studies. They were short-lived and physically weak compared to most species. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 100 years ago. The galaxy considered them children, but children could be brave. Children could be kind. And right now, Valera needed someone brave and kind more than she needed someone powerful. "Send a message to the human embassy," she said. "I want to meet with them." Oren nodded and rose to his feet. At the door, he paused. "Your father would be proud of you, Valera. You have his courage." Valera did not answer. She just kept looking at the stars, wondering if somewhere out there, a human might be willing to save a princess that no one else wanted. Commander Ethan Cole was having a very bad day when the royal summons arrived. He sat in his small office at the human embassy, surrounded by piles of paperwork that never seemed to get smaller. The room was barely big enough for his desk and 2 chairs. The walls were plain gray metal, and the only decoration was a small photograph of Earth that he had brought from home. It showed the planet from space, blue and green and beautiful, hanging in the darkness like a precious jewel. Ethan was 34 years old, with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had been a Navy pilot back on Earth, flying missions through asteroid fields and defending cargo ships from pirates. He was good at staying calm when everything went wrong. That skill had gotten him assigned to the diplomatic corps, sent to an alien empire to represent humanity. It was not the job he had wanted. But someone had to do it. The human embassy on the Kethrani capital world was small and unimportant. The Kethrani tolerated humans the way a grown adult tolerates a noisy child. They allowed basic trade agreements and nothing more. Ethan spent most of his time solving problems that nobody cared about. Lost tourists who could not find their hotels. Merchants who had been cheated in the markets. Small things that made no difference to anyone. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Maya Ortiz, knocked on his door and entered without waiting for an answer. Maya was a short woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had sharp eyes that missed nothing and a way of speaking that could cut through steel. "You need to see this," she said. She held a datapad in her hand, and her face showed an expression Ethan had never seen before. She looked confused and a little scared. "What is it?" Ethan asked. "Another tourist stuck in the wrong bathroom?" "A royal summons." Maya handed him the pad. "From Princess Valera herself. She wants to meet with you. Tomorrow. At the palace." Ethan stared at the words on the screen. He read them 3 times to make sure he understood them. In 5 years of working on this planet, no member of the Kethrani royal family had ever acknowledged that humans existed. They had never received so much as a polite greeting card. "This has to be a mistake," he said. "I checked 3 times. The seal is real. The codes are valid. The princess wants to see us." Ethan leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. He had learned early in this job that surprises were rarely good. When something strange happened, it usually meant trouble was coming. "Get Dr. Shaw," he said. "We need to know what we are walking into." Dr. Benjamin Shaw was the embassy's cultural advisor. He was an old man with white hair and thick glasses that made his eyes look too big for his face. He had spent 30 years studying the Kethrani, learning their language and their history and their strange customs. He knew more about them than most Kethrani knew about themselves. He sat in Ethan's office an hour later, reading the summons with great interest. His wrinkled face showed excitement instead of worry. "Fascinating," he muttered. "Absolutely fascinating. I never thought I would see this day." "See what day?" Maya asked. She stood by the door with her arms crossed, looking unhappy. "What does a princess want with us?" Dr. Shaw looked up at them with bright eyes. "I have been following the court news. Princess Valera is the daughter of the late emperor. Her mother was a commoner, which makes her blood impure in the eyes of the noble houses. She needed to find a consort from a noble family to claim her inheritance. Yesterday, every noble house in the empire refused her petition." "So she has no consort," Ethan said. "What does that have to do with us?" "There is an old law, the Pact of Open Bonds. It allows a royal to seek a consort from any species in the Galactic Compact." Dr. Shaw smiled. "Humans are members of the Compact. We are the newest members, but we are still members." Maya's eyes went wide. "She wants to marry a human? That is crazy." "It is desperate," Dr. Shaw corrected. "But desperation can create opportunity. If a human became consort to a Kethrani princess, it would change everything for our species. We would have a voice in one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. We would gain protections and standing that would take centuries to earn on our own." Ethan stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the alien city stretched toward the horizon, full of buildings that touched the clouds and vehicles that flew through the air like birds. It was beautiful and strange and completely foreign. He had never felt at home here. He did not think he ever would. And what would happen to the human who agreed? He asked quietly. What would his life look like? Dr. Shaw was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. He would leave Earth behind. He would live in an empire that considers his species primitive and inferior. He would face hatred and contempt every day of his life. It would not be easy. Maya stepped forward. Ethan, you cannot be thinking about this. We do not even know what she wants. This could be a trap. The Kethrani have never shown us any kindness. Why would they start now? They would not, Ethan said. But she is not them. She is a half-blood princess that her own people rejected. Maybe she knows what it feels like to be looked down on. The next day, Ethan put on his best uniform and traveled to the palace with Maya and Dr. Shaw. The royal complex was the most impressive structure he had ever seen. It was made of white stone that seemed to glow from within, with towers that stretched toward the sky like fingers reaching for the stars. Guards in golden armor watched them with suspicious eyes as they passed through the gates. Inside, the palace was even more overwhelming. Every surface was decorated with carvings and paintings and precious metals. Nobles walked through the halls in their fine robes, and every single one of them looked at the humans with disgust. Ethan heard whispers as they passed. Primitive, savage, animals. He kept his face calm and his back straight. He had been underestimated his whole life. He was used to it. A servant led them to a private meeting room. It was smaller than Ethan expected, with simple furniture and a large window that looked out on a garden. Princess Valera stood by the window, waiting for them. She was beautiful in a way that was completely alien. Her skin was a soft violet color, and her eyes were large and silver, like mirrors reflecting starlight. She was tall and thin, with long dark hair that fell past her shoulders. She wore a simple blue dress, nothing like the fancy robes of the nobles outside. She looked at them with hope in her eyes. It was the hope of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Thank you for coming," she said. Her voice was soft but steady. "I know this request must seem strange to you." "Your Highness," Ethan said, bowing his head. "We are honored by your invitation. How can we help you?" Valera was quiet for a moment. Then she began to speak, telling them everything. She told them about her father and her mother. She told them about the noble houses and their hatred. She told them about the old law and why she had summoned them here. "I need a consort," she said finally, "or I lose everything. My throne, my father's legacy, my freedom. My uncle will take power, and he will destroy everything my father tried to build. I am asking humanity to consider a political union. I am asking if one of you might be willing to stand beside me." The room was silent. Maya looked shocked. Dr. Shaw looked thoughtful. Ethan looked at the princess and saw past her alien features to the person underneath. He saw someone scared and alone, fighting against a world that wanted to crush her. "You are asking me to marry you," he said slowly. "I am asking if humanity might be willing to save a Phi, princes that no one else would touch." Valera met his eyes without looking away. "I do not expect love. I do not expect anything except honesty and partnership. I am offering you the same in return." Ethan thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about his family, his friends, his life. He thought about everything he would lose. Then he thought about everything humanity might gain. "I need time," he said. "I need to speak with my government. This is not a decision I can make alone." Valera nodded. "I understand. Take the time you need. But please know that time is something I do not have much of. My uncle is already moving against me. Every day that passes makes my position weaker." As they left the palace, Maya grabbed Ethan's arm. "Please tell me you are not actually considering this." Ethan looked back at the white towers reaching toward the sky. Somewhere inside, A princess was waiting for an answer that could change everything. "I do not know what I am considering," he said, "but I know I cannot say no without thinking about it first." The message to Earth took 3 days to send and receive. Faster than light communication was expensive, and the human embassy did not have priority access. Ethan spent those 3 days in his small office, unable to sleep, unable to think about anything except the choice that waited for him. He thought about his mother back in Ohio, growing old in the house where he had grown up. He thought about his younger sister and her 2 children, who called him Uncle Ethan and sent him drawings of spaceships that looked nothing like real spaceships. He thought about the smell of rain on grass and the taste of coffee in the morning and 1,000 small things that he had always taken for granted. If he did this, he might never see any of that again. The Kethrani capital was far from Earth, and the journey was long and expensive. He would become a stranger to his own family, a face on a screen that grew older and more distant with every passing year. Maya found him in his office late one night, staring at the photograph of Earth on his wall. "You have not slept in 2 days," she said. She set a cup of something hot on his desk. It was not coffee, because they could not get real coffee this far from home, but it was close enough. "I have been thinking," Ethan said. "About the princess? About everything." He picked up the cup and held it in his hands, feeling the warmth spread through his fingers. "When I was young, I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to explore the stars and see things no human had ever seen. I thought it would be exciting. I thought it would be simple." Maya sat down across from him. "And now? Now I know that nothing is simple. The galaxy is full of species that have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. They look at us like we are children playing with toys we do not understand. We are nothing to them. We are less than nothing. So why are you considering this?" Maya asked. "Why would you give up your life for people who think so little of us?" Ethan looked at her with tired eyes. "Because someone has to show them they are wrong. Someone has to prove that humans are worth something. If not me, then who? If not now, then when?" The response from Earth arrived the next morning. The United Nations Council had debated for hours before reaching a decision. They would support whatever choice Ethan made. They would not order him to accept, but they would not forbid it either. The message included notes from different representatives. Some were excited about the opportunity. A human in the Kethrani royal line could open doors that had been closed to humanity since first contact. Others were worried. They thought it was a trap, a way for the Kethrani to humiliate humanity on a galactic stage. Dr. Shaw read through all the messages with great care. When he finished, he looked at Ethan with serious eyes. "The Council is leaving this in your hands," he said. "That is a heavy burden to place on one person." "They do not know what else to do," Ethan replied. "None of us have ever faced anything like this before. There is no guidebook, no training program, no list of rules to follow. I have to make this choice on my own." "Not entirely on your own," Dr. Shaw said gently. "You have us. And you have Princess Valera. Perhaps you should speak with her again before you decide." That evening, Ethan broke protocol and visited the palace without an official invitation. He told the guards he had important information for the princess, and after many suspicious looks and whispered conversations, they let him through. A servant led him through endless corridors to the observatory tower. He found Valera standing at the telescope, looking at the stars. She turned when she heard his footsteps, and her silver eyes showed surprise. "Commander Cole," she said, "I did not expect to see you so soon. Has your government made a decision?" "They have left the decision to me." Ethan walked to the window and looked out at the night sky. "I am still trying to figure out what to do." Valera was quiet for a long moment. Then she walked to a small table where a bottle and 2 glasses waited. She poured a dark liquid into both glasses and handed one to Ethan. "This was my father's favorite drink," she said. "He used to come here at night and look at the stars." He said it helped him think. Ethan took the glass and sipped carefully. The drink was sweet and warm, with a taste he could not identify. It was strange, but not unpleasant. "Tell me about your mother," he said. "You said she was a commoner. How did she meet an emperor?" Valera smiled, but it was a sad smile. "My father visited a colony world when he was young. He was supposed to inspect the local government and return home. Instead, he fell in love with a teacher he met at a small school. She was kind and brave, and she said things to him that no one else dared to say. He could not forget her, and the noble houses did not approve. They did everything they could to stop him. They threatened him. They tried to bribe him. When that did not work, they made my mother's life miserable. They called her names and spread lies about her. They said she had tricked the emperor with magic or drugs." Valera's voice grew quiet. "She died when I was 10 years old. The doctor said it was an illness, but I know the truth. She died because they broke her heart." Ethan set down his glass. "I am sorry. That should not have happened. My father changed after she died. He became harder, colder. He spent the rest of his life trying to change the laws that had hurt us, but the noble houses were too strong. He died before he could finish his work." Valera looked at Ethan with those silver mirror eyes. "That is why I cannot give up. If I do, everything he fought for dies with me. And you think a human consort can help you win? I think a human consort is my only chance." Valera stepped closer to him. "I will be honest with you, Commander. I do not know if we can succeed. My uncle is powerful and clever. The noble houses hate me. The odds are against us in every way. But I believe that sometimes the impossible becomes possible when people refuse to give up." Ethan thought about her words. He thought about his mother and his sister and the photograph of Earth on his office wall. He thought about all the humans who had ever been told they were not good enough, not smart enough, not strong enough. He thought about what it would mean if humanity proved them all wrong. "They will try to destroy me," he said. "Your people, your nobles. They will do everything they can to make me fail." "Yes," Valera agreed. "They will call you savage and primitive. They will say you are not worthy of standing beside a princess. They will try to make you believe that you are nothing." "And what do you believe?" Valera reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool and smooth, completely different from human skin. But her grip was strong and sure. "I believe that worth is not something you are born with," she said. "It is something you prove through your actions. My mother proved her worth every day of her life, even when the whole empire said she was worthless. I see the same strength in you, Commander Cole. I saw it the moment you walked into my meeting room." Ethan looked at their joined hands. Human and alien, two species that had almost nothing in common. And yet, standing here in this tower under the stars, he felt like he understood her perfectly. "My name is Ethan," he said. "If we are going to do this, you should probably use my first name." Valera's eyes widened. Then a real smile spread across her face, the first genuine smile he had seen from her. "Does this mean you accept?" "It means I am going to try." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "I cannot promise I will win. I cannot promise anything will work out the way we hope. But I can promise that I will not give up, no matter what they throw at us." "That is all I ask," Valera said. "That is more than anyone else has ever offered me." They stood together in the observatory, watching the stars spin slowly overhead. Somewhere in that vast darkness was Earth, Ethan's home, the world he might never see again. He felt the weight of his choice pressing down on him like a physical thing. But he also felt something else. Hope, fragile and uncertain, but real. The hope that maybe, just maybe, a human and an alien princess could change the galaxy together. When do we begin?" he asked. "The bonding ceremony will take place in 1 month," Valera said. "Until then, you will need to learn our customs, our language, our ways. It will not be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is." Valera laughed softly. It was a beautiful sound, like bells ringing in the distance. "I think I am going to like you, Ethan Cole." "I think I am going to like you too, Princess Valera." And standing there under the alien stars, the most important alliance in human history was sealed not with politics or treaties, but with two people choosing to trust each other. The month before the bonding ceremony was the hardest of Ethan's life. Every day, he woke before sunrise and studied Kethrani language until his head hurt. He learned their history, their customs, their complicated rules about who could speak to whom and when. He practiced walking in formal robes that felt heavy and strange on his body. He memorized the names of hundreds of noble houses and the feuds between them that stretched back thousands of years that Maya helped him when she could, testing him on vocabulary and correcting his pronunciation. Dr. Shaw spent hours explaining the hidden meanings behind simple phrases, the tiny insults that could be delivered with a raised eyebrow or a pause in the wrong place. "The Kethrani speak with more than words," Dr. Shaw told him one evening. "Every gesture, every silence, every movement of the hand carries meaning. You must learn to read them as easily as you read a book." "And if I make a mistake?" Ethan asked. "Then they will use that mistake against you. They will say you are too primitive to understand civilized communication. They will use it as proof that humans do not belong among them." Ethan practiced until his muscles ached and his brain felt like it was melting. He made mistakes constantly. He said the wrong words, bowed at the wrong times, moved his hands in ways that meant things he did not intend. But slowly, day by day, he got better. Valera visited him often at the embassy. She was patient and kind, never mocking him for his errors. She told him stories about her childhood and asked questions about Earth. They talked for hours about nothing important. And Ethan found himself looking forward to her visits more than anything else. "You are learning faster than I expected," she told him one afternoon. They sat in the embassy garden, a small patch of alien plants that the previous ambassador had tried to make feel like home. "Most Kethrani children take years to learn what you have learned in weeks." "I have good motivation," Ethan said. "I do not want to embarrass you in front of your entire empire." Valera smiled. "You could never embarrass me. But I am glad you are working so hard. It will make things easier when the time comes." The bonding ceremony approached like a storm on the horizon. Invitations went out to every corner of the Galactic Compact. Representatives from dozens of species confirmed their attendance, most of them coming to witness what they expected to be a disaster. A human marrying Kethrani royalty was the biggest news in the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see it happen. The ceremony was held in the Grand Temple, the oldest building in the capital city. It was made of black stone that absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Inside, thousands of candles burned on golden stands, casting flickering shadows on the walls. The air smelled of incense and something sweeter, a flower that Ethan did not recognize. He stood at the front of the temple in formal robes of silver and blue, the colors of the royal house. His heart beat fast in his chest, but he kept his face calm. Maya stood nearby with a group of human diplomats, watching with worried eyes. Dr. Shaw stood beside her, his old face showing quiet pride. Valera entered through the main doors, and for a moment, Ethan forgot how to breathe. She wore a gown of pure white that seemed to glow in the candlelight. Her dark hair was piled on her head in an elaborate arrangement decorated with tiny silver stars. She walked slowly, gracefully, her silver eyes fixed on Ethan as if he was the only person in the room. She was beautiful. Not just in an alien way, not just in a way that was strange and different. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest hurt. They met at the altar, where an ancient priest waited to perform the ceremony. The old Kethrani spoke words in a language so old that even Ethan's studies had not covered it. He and Valera repeated the words as best they could, their voices blending together in the quiet of the temple. Then, just as the priest reached for the ceremonial cup that would seal their bond, a voice rang out through the temple. "I invoke the right of worthiness." Everyone turned. Prince Counselor Draven stepped forward from the crowd, his face twisted with cruel satisfaction. He wore black robes decorated with silver thorns, and his eyes burned with hatred as he looked at Ethan. "By ancient law," Draven continued, "any noble may demand that a foreign consort prove their value before bonding with Kethrani royalty. I make this demand now before all these witnesses." A murmur swept through the crowd. Valera's face went pale, and her hands trembled. "Uncle," she said, her voice tight with anger, "you cannot do this." "The ceremony has already begun." "The ceremony is not complete until the cup is drunk," Draven replied smoothly. "I am within my rights. The law is clear." The ancient priest bowed his head. "The Prince Counselor speaks truth. The right of worthiness may be invoked at any time before the bonding is sealed. What trial do you demand?" Draven's smile widened. "The Crucible of Shadows." This time, the murmur became a roar. Voices rose from every corner of the temple, shocked and angry and afraid. Ethan did not know what the Crucible of Shadows was, but from the reaction, he knew it was bad. "No." Valera stepped forward, her voice rising above the noise. "The Crucible has not been used in centuries. It is barbaric. It has killed more challengers than it has passed. Then your consort should have no trouble proving himself if he is truly worthy." Draven spread his hands in mock innocence. "Unless, of course, he wishes to withdraw." No one would blame him for being afraid. The temple fell silent. Every eye turned to Ethan. He felt the weight of their stares pressing down on him, felt the judgment of 1,000 alien minds. They expected him to run. They expected him to fail. He thought about Valera, who had lost everything and still refused to give up. He thought about humanity, watching from 1,000,000 light years away, waiting to see if one of their own could stand among the stars. He thought about all the people who had ever been told they were not good enough. "I accept the challenge," he said. Valera grabbed his arm. "Ethan, no. You do not understand. The Crucible is ritual combat. You will fight a Kethrani champion who is trained since childhood. Their warriors are stronger and faster than humans. You will die. Then I will die trying." Ethan covered her hand with his own. "But I will not run. I will not give them the satisfaction." Draven laughed. "How touching. A human with courage. Let us see how long that courage lasts." The trial was set for 3 days later. Until then, Ethan was taken to special quarters in the palace, guarded but not imprisoned. The law required that the challenger be given time to prepare. Maya and Dr. Shaw came to see him that night. Maya was furious, pacing back and forth across the small room like a trapped animal. "This is insane," she said. "We need to contact Earth. We need to get you out of here." "I cannot leave," Ethan said quietly. "If I run, Valera loses everything. The noble houses win. Draven takes the throne. Everything we have worked for disappears. And if you die, then at least I died fighting." Dr. Shaw sat in the corner, studying a datapad with intense concentration. He had been quiet since they arrived, reading and thinking and calculating. "There may be a way," he said finally. Maya stopped pacing. "What do you mean?" "I have been studying the rules of the Crucible." Dr. Shaw held up the datapad. "It is a very old ritual with very strict rules. The combat continues until one fighter surrenders or can no longer continue. There is no time limit, no weapon restrictions. Just two bodies fighting until one falls. That does not sound like good news, Maya said. The Kethrani developed this ritual for Kethrani warriors, Dr. Shaw continued. Their champions are trained to strike fast and hard, to end fights quickly. They are built for short bursts of intense combat, not for long battles. Ethan leaned forward. What are you saying? Humans are different. We are not as strong or as fast, but we have something they do not have: endurance. Humans can take more damage and keep going. Humans can push through pain that would cripple other species. Our bodies are built for persistence, not power. Maya's eyes widened. You are saying he does not need to win. He just needs to survive. Exactly. Dr. Shaw smiled. If Ethan can stay on his feet long enough, the Kethrani champion will exhaust himself. He will slow down. He will make mistakes. And if Ethan can outlast him, then I win, Ethan finished. Not by being stronger, but by refusing to fall. It was not much of a plan. It was desperate and dangerous and probably foolish. But it was something. It was hoped that Ethan spent the next 3 days training. He did not try to learn how to fight like a Kethrani. He did not have time for that. Instead, he trained his body to take punishment. He practiced getting hit and getting up. He practiced breathing through pain. He practiced the one thing that humans had always been good at, not giving up. On the morning of the crucible, Valera came to see him. Her silver eyes were red from crying, and she looked like she had not slept. I am so sorry, she whispered. I never wanted this. I never wanted to put you in danger. Ethan took her hands in his. They had grown comfortable with each other over the past month. Not quite friends, not quite lovers, but something in between. Something that could grow into more if they were given the chance. You did not do this, he said. Your uncle did. And I'm going to make sure he regrets it. How can you be so calm? Ethan smiled. I am terrified. But I have been terrified before. Fear does not have to stop you. It just means you care about what happens next. Valera pulled him into an embrace. She held him tight, her alien body warm against his. The Crucible Arena was older than the Empire itself, that it sat in the heart of the capital city, a massive stone circle that had seen 1,000 battles and 1,000 deaths. The floor was covered with dark sand that had absorbed so much blood over the centuries that it had turned a deep brown color. Stone seats rose in rings around the fighting floor, packed with spectators from across the Galactic Compact. They had come to watch a human die. Ethan walked into the arena wearing simple white clothes, the traditional outfit of a crucible challenger. The fabric was thin and offered no protection. He was barefoot, his hands empty. No weapons were allowed. This fight would be settled with fists and bodies alone. The crowd fell silent as he entered. Then the whispers started. He could not hear the words, but he knew what they were saying. Primitive, weak, foolish. They looked at him like he was an animal that had wandered into a place it did not belong. On the far side of the arena, his opponent waited. Kalen was the most famous warrior in the Kethrani Empire. He stood almost 7 feet tall, with muscles that looked like they were carved from purple stone. His violet skin was covered with scars from a lifetime of combat. He had won 11 crucibles and had never lost a single fight. The betting houses were offering odds of 50 to 1 against the human. Ethan looked at this monster of a warrior and felt fear crawl through his chest like ice water. Kalen could break him in half without effort. He could crush him like an insect. Every instinct in Ethan's body screamed at him to run. He did not run, Prince. Councillor Draven sat in the royal box with Valera beside him. She was forced to watch by tradition, unable to help, unable to look away. Her face was pale, and her hands gripped the arms of her chair until her knuckles turned white. Draven looked pleased. He had already won, and everyone knew it. This fight was just entertainment, a way to humiliate humanity before the whole galaxy. The ancient referee stepped into the center of the arena. He raised his hands, and the crowd grew quiet. "The Crucible of Shadows begins now," he announced. "The fight continues until one warrior surrenders or can no longer continue. May the worthy prevail." He stepped back, and the battle began. Kalen moved faster than anything Ethan had ever seen. One moment, he was across the arena. The next moment, his fist was buried in Ethan's stomach. The pain was beyond anything Ethan had experienced. He flew backward, hit the sand hard, and for a moment could not breathe. The world spun around him in a blur of colors and sounds. The crowd roared with savage joy. Kalen stood over him, waiting. The Kethrani warrior looked almost disappointed. Was this really all the human could offer? Ethan got up, took everything he had. His stomach felt like it was on fire, and his lungs burned with every breath. But he pushed himself to his feet and raised his hands again. The crowd fell silent. Kalen struck again, a blow to the chest that cracked ribs like dry twigs. Ethan went down. The pain was so intense that black spots danced in his vision. He thought about his mother, his sister, the green hills of Ohio. He thought about how easy it would be to just stay down. He got up. The fight became a nightmare. Kalen hit him again and again, each blow more powerful than the last. He broke Ethan's nose. He split his lip. He struck his ribs until Ethan could feel them grinding together with every movement. And every time he fell, Ethan got up. After the first hour, something strange happened. The crowd stopped cheering. They watched in growing silence as this human, this primitive creature from a nothing world, refused to stay on the ground. They had never seen anything like it. Their warriors fought with speed and power, striking to end battles quickly. They were not built for this kind of punishment. But this human just kept rising. Blood covered Ethan's face and chest. He could barely see through his swollen eyes. Each breath was agony. His left leg had given out halfway through the fight, so he stood on his right alone, swaying like a tree in a storm. But he stood. Kalen was breathing hard now. His strikes were slower, less precise. Sweat poured down his purple skin. He had fought for an hour straight, using all his power, and his opponent was still standing. It was impossible. It was unnatural. It was terrifying. "Why will you not fall?" Kalen demanded. His voice was hoarse with exhaustion. "What is wrong with you?" Ethan spat blood onto the sand. His voice came out as a broken whisper, but everyone in the silent arena heard it. "Humans do not fall. We never learned how." He raised his broken hands and waited. The second hour was worse than the first. Kalen kept attacking, but his movements were sluggish now. His arms felt like they were filled with sand. Each punch took more effort than the last. Ethan took them all. He fell and rose, again and again. The sand beneath him was dark with blood, most of it his own. He could not feel his left arm anymore. He was pretty sure some of his internal organs were damaged. He was dying slowly, one blow at a time, but he was still standing. In the royal box, the Lyra was weeping openly. She could not look away, could not close her eyes. She watched the human she had grown to care for being destroyed piece by piece, and she was helpless to stop it. Draven was no longer smiling. His face showed something that might have been uncertainty or even fear. This was not supposed to happen. The human was supposed to break. The third hour began. Kalen stumbled. His legs, designed for short bursts of combat, could no longer support him properly. He threw a punch that was almost gentle compared to his earlier strikes. Ethan took it on the shoulder and barely moved. "Surrender," Kalen gasped. He was bent over, hands on his knees, struggling to breathe. "Please, I do not want to kill you. Just surrender." Ethan looked at him through swollen eyes. He thought about Valera waiting in the stands. He thought about humanity watching from across the stars. He thought about everyone who had ever been told they were not good enough. No. Kalen raised his fist for another strike. His arm trembled. He took a step forward, and his leg gave out. The greatest warrior in the Kethrani Empire fell to his knees in the sand. He tried to rise. His body refused. "I cannot," he whispered. His voice was barely audible. "I cannot continue." The arena was absolutely silent. Then the ancient referee stepped forward, his face showing shock that he could not hide. "Kalen of House Varth is unable to continue," he announced. His voice trembled slightly. "The crucible is complete. Ethan Cole is victorious." For a long moment, nothing happened. The galaxy watched, holding its collective breath. Then, from the common sections of the arena, where the workers and servants and soldiers sat, a voice rose. "Human! Human! Human!" More voices joined in. The chant spread like fire, growing louder and stronger until it shook the ancient stones. The common people of the Kethrani Empire were cheering for a human. It had never happened before in all of history. Valera broke free from the royal box and ran across the sand. She caught Ethan just as his legs finally gave out. She held him in her arms, her tears falling on his broken face. "You impossible creature," she whispered. "You actually did it." "Told you," Ethan managed. His voice was weak, his consciousness fading. "I do not stay down. Save your strength. The healers are coming. Did we win?" Valera looked up at Draven, who sat frozen in the royal box. His plans had crumbled to dust. His champion had fallen. The entire galaxy had just watched a human do the impossible. "Yes," she said softly. "We won." In the human embassy, Maya and Dr. Shaw stood before a view screen, watching the broadcast. Tears streamed down Maya's face. Dr. Shaw's hands were shaking. "He did it," Maya whispered. "The crazy fool actually did it." "He showed them," Dr. Shaw said. His voice was thick with emotion. "He showed the whole galaxy what humans are made of." Across human space, billions watched a broken man refuse to fall. They watched him take blow after blow and rise every single time. They watched him prove that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or power, but something far more precious: the refusal to give up. The bonding ceremony was completed 3 days later, after Ethan had recovered enough to stand. He was still covered in bandages, still barely able to walk, but he stood beside Valera at the altar and spoke the ancient words. When they drank from the ceremonial cup, the common people who had gathered outside the temple cheered so loudly that the sound echoed through the city. They called him the Human Prince, the one who would not fall. They painted murals of his bloodied face on walls throughout the capital. Draven disappeared shortly after the ceremony. Some said he fled to the outer colonies. Others said he simply vanished, unable to face the shame of his failure. On their first night as bonded partners, Valera and Ethan stood in the observatory tower, looking at the stars. "Do you regret it?" she asked him. "Leaving everything behind for me?" Ethan took her hand in his bandaged one. He looked at the distant point of light that was Earth's sun, so far away that the light took years to reach him. "I gave up a lot," he admitted. "But I gained something too. A chance to prove that humans matter. A chance to change how the galaxy sees us." He turned to look at her, at those silver mirror eyes that he had grown to love. "A chance to be with you." Valera leaned against him carefully, mindful of his injuries. "What happens now?" "I do not know. Your uncle is still out there. The noble houses still hate us. We have enemies everywhere we look." Ethan smiled, even though it hurt his broken face to do it. but we are still standing. As long as we are.